Hey, what's up? I'm Kirk of Effectatron, and today we're going to go ahead and create this cool combing and then smoothing kind of device here inside of Cinema 4D with the dynamic system, and show you some tips and tricks on how to both model, how to do some dynamic stuff, and then, basically how to cache stuff and then smooth things out and do a lot of troubleshooting with some of this dynamic stuff that you may run into, but also how we can make like thousands of things and have them all have dynamics and have it not bog down our scene. But still have really nice, clean looking renders at the end. So let's go ahead and get started learning. And this video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is a great site for creatives, built by creatives for creatives. That's one of my favorite things about it. Everyone that you take a class with is very passionate about what they're teaching, what they're doing. So you really connect with the teachers and stuff right away. I have some courses and stuff on Skillshare as well. And one thing I'm interested in learning on Skillshare is Unreal Engine, which may come to a shock to some of you, probably not. But basically, I think that C4D and Unreal Engine work really well together now. And I think that the two combined could be pretty cool. So I'm going to start learning Unreal Engine. And one thing that's cool about Skillshare is they have these learning paths, which is something you can do to create. And they sort of have like basically a curated list that you can just go through to kind of help you. So you don't have to search to find things that go well together. And it's just kind of built there for you. So we've got production with Jordy, who's fantastic. His stuff is always great. And then we've got design personal avatars for VR, stuff like that. And then a complete lighting guide. And then, of course, game development, which is not something I'm interested in. But I can skip that and do some lighting and stuff like that for sure. And the cool thing with learning something new like Unreal or C4D or whatever you're trying to do is I just don't want you to be afraid of FOMO and stuff like that. You don't need to worry about like what should I do? What should I learn? All of it's very similar. And since I know how to use most of Unreal Engine, I know how to use 3ds Max, I know how to use Cinema 4D, I know how to use Blender. And what I'll say with all of these is they're all very similar. They just have different names for certain things, but you really aren't wasting your time learning any of these. And so that's what's great about a site like Skillshare and stuff is it has access to all of those things together. So it's all really cool. Skillshare has the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes led by industry experts such as myself. You see, we've typed in C4D, you get several of my classes brought up. Very fun, and I'll be adding more regularly as well as some other artists that are fantastic. Definitely, you cannot learn too much. We've got Dave from the CG Shortcuts here as well, some great stuff. All these great tutorials and things, and there's tons to learn from all kinds of teachers and things. So definitely, you want to just check it out. And you can use the link below to get a free trial. So literally risk-free. You can take the free trial, take some courses, see if you like it. Please, the first 500 people to use the link below will get a free trial. So go right ahead and start learning today. Thanks again, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. All right, so we're going to start with a blank scene, and then we just got a dome light with an HDRI from the asset browser, Studio, and then a backdrop object as well. So let's go ahead and start by creating that tray that's going to hold all of our little balls that are going to be smoothing out and everything. So let's go ahead and grab this, and we're going to go to cylinder, choose that, and inside of cylinder, we're going to make the height of it about 20, the radius about 100, and then we'll do probably 10 in the height, and we want to do a lot of rotations, but we'll do like 64 maybe. So we don't have to do a super ton. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Now what I want to do is let's go ahead and go to our lines display here. And what I want to do is I want to set it right on the floor. So if it's 10 high from top to bottom, it always puts it right in the middle when you create a primitive object like this. So if you want to raise it up and have it be exactly on the floor, you just do half the height. So 10. There you go. Now we go to our caps and do a little fillet on it as well. We'll just, we'll do 3 segments, but we'll suck it in a little bit like that. Cool. And then we want more things on the top here. So what we're going to do is with our caps, we'll just go beep, 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 like that. So it's a little cleaner on top. Not too big a deal. Now we're just going to go ahead and hit C to make that editable. And then we're going to grab our face tool and grab our selection tool. And we're going to hold middle mouse click. And we're just going to select all this stuff on the top. It's easiest to do in the top view. And we'll just go whoop, like that. Actually, we'll just do the very center. And then hit U, Y, which when you hit U, it brings up the list of commands. Y is row selection. So U, Y, U, Y, U, Y. Okay. We've selected it all. We can go back to this view now. Hit E for the move tool. And we're just going to, we're going to hit T for the move tool. And what you may think you need to do is just, scale it in and then pull it down. Well, that's going to cause some weird geometry and stuff's not going to work right. So how do we actually create geometry while we're adjusting it? So we hit T for scale, hold Control, and click. And that is going to actually build these lines for us while we're going. So hold Control and scale it in a little bit, then hit E. And then once again, hold Control, go down just a little bit, and maybe scale it in just a smidge like that. So it's a little bevel, see that? Okay, and then E, scroll down just a little bit, and then you can start going down a little bigger there. And when you get to the bottom, hit a little bit again, hold T, Control, click, drag, and a little bit like that. Okay, so now we have kind of that bevel. Pull that down just a bit on that inside one. Yeah, and T, once again, scale it down, and pull it down. Cool. So now we've created that, and the cool thing is now we can subdivide that. And we get this really nice smooth shape if we want, but really we're pretty good with the geometry we have here for now. But when it comes to render time, we can just go boop and really have a nice smooth shape. Cool. But when we're working in dynamics, it's good to have that geometry there, but we don't need like as much as we used to. Stuff shouldn't clip through like it used to anymore with the new GPU system. It's pretty good. All right, so we get rid of this because it's like clipping through and looking weird, but it's totally fine. All right. So now we've got that. We can go ahead and call that like tray. Nice. So let's create our little balls that are going to be dropping in. So we'll create a sphere, and obviously that's too big. Let's do 1 centimeter. Okay, that's pretty good. And then for the segments, we're actually going to go ahead and lower that down to all the way down to like 6. And you may think, well, that's crazy. That's going to look really bad. It will, but the way we're going to build it is we're going to be able to come back in and go whoop, right at the end of it without it really having any issue. So lower the geometry with this is going to allow us to have faster dynamics, and it should look totally fine. Okay, so now we've got that selected, and we're going to go ahead and put that in a cloner. And for our cloner object, we definitely want it to be multi-instance, okay, because that's just going to allow everything to run faster. Now, we want a lot of these. Now, if it's 1 centimeter wide, right, of a radius of our sphere, that means that if we separate these all out by 2, 2, and 2, they're going to be touching. And we don't want that, but we want them to be really close. So like maybe 2.1 and 2.1 and 2.1. Okay? And then we can come in here and maybe do like 25, 25, 25. And we have a pretty big grid now. And we might end up needing more. We also can scale this down. You can do all these things. It's totally fine. So what we want to do now is we're going to grab our tray, right-click it, Simulation Collider. Okay, obviously it needs to collide. We're going to take the bounce off. We don't need that. We can do about half friction, 0.5. It's fine. Now we're going to go over here, and rather than putting the dynamic tag on our sphere, we're actually just going to put it on the cloner. Simulation tags, rigid body. We're going to go to the the collision information, and we're going to turn the friction. That's fine. Obviously, this is fine. Now, this is the big one, thickness. So this one's a confusing one because it doesn't really make a lot of sense in what it's actually doing. Think of it like if you've ever worked in Unreal Engine or game dev or anything, and you have a bounding box with like collisions. Basically, there's like a rough shape, like an invisible wall where you collide into stuff rather than having to actually collide with the geometry. That's kind of how this works. So basically what we want to do is we want to make sure it's really small for more accurate stuff. Yes, it's going to take longer, but because our shape is only 2 centimeters wide, we need our thickness to be like 0.5. You really want it to be lower than the radius of your sphere or whatever it is. So you want it to have a nice thin thickness. Otherwise, you're going to get weird gaps between like walls and stuff like that. Really, the lower you can go, the better. Like 0.1 is fine, but we should see that 0.5 should be okay. We're going to go ahead and save. I always recommend saving before we, hit play on this stuff once we've made it so far, because dynamics just get funky, right? So we're going to hit play. It's going to cook for a little bit, and then it'll finally play through. And we should see our balls go boom. And that's super satisfying. Like, that is something that we could not do in 2023. Now, do I like this? Yeah, I do. I think I just want more. I could probably just shrink the tray in. Yeah, let's just shrink the tray in. Hold T, scale it in. Maybe like hold shift so we can do it. Like, let's do it again. Let's just scale our tray in. It's going to be a little less accurate, you know, if we go to make the thing in the middle, but we'll T, whoops, and we'll just hold shift and scale it in like 75%. All right, now when we hit play, let's see if it fills it up a little more, because the more I can like fill it up with the illusion of a bunch of things, you know, obviously it's going to be better than if I have to just come in and add a whole bunch of dots. So that's pretty good. I think we could add some more. Let's go ahead and into our cloner and stretch this up to like 40. Okay, hit play. I did 40 in the Y, so it's like 40 stacks now instead of 25. And remember, each time it's adding 25 by 25, so it adds up quick, right? There we go. Got a couple splashes coming out. I'm not too worried about that. That's pretty full. I might be too full. Slightly too full. But I do like the amount that it looks like. Let's grab our tray again and just hit T and scale it back up just another like 15%. So really we're back to just 90% of our original shape. Let's go. I think, if my math is right, it could be that. Don't hold me on that. So here we go. Shape's coming in. Pouring out. Like so. We're just going to let it all kind of settle in a little bit. Very nice. We're going to get kind of close to the end here. And we're going to go ahead and hit pause. So we're hitting pause around frame 85. And we're going to go into our tag here for our spheres. Now for our spheres, we're going to go ahead and go to the Dynamics tab now. Go down to the bottom. And at the bottom, you see we have the init state, which is initial state. I guess you couldn't fit the whole word in right there. I don't know. But yeah, so we've got that. We're going to go, I don't know why I'm being sassy about that. So I don't know. Okay, we're going to go ahead and click set. And what that's going to do is now when we go back to frame 0, everything's where it is. So now when we hit play, it's basically going to be from right there. And so what I like to do is kind of like go back, let it hit play again. Just kind of let everything settle a little bit more over the next like second or two. So once things start settling in a little bit more, we should start getting a little less wibble wobble. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is we can come in here and adjust the sleep strength a little bit and maybe lower the timer down. So like if it's not moving that much over 5 frames, it's just going to deactivate it basically, which is kind of what we want. But we also just want to turn on the dampening a little bit, and we'll just crank that up to 10. And basically that's going to just kind of smooth everything out and calm everything down so we're not getting all that shaking. We'll go ahead and back it up and hit play again, and we should have things settle in a little bit more and be less like random objects just kind of bouncing around for seemingly no reason. Okay, there we go. Things are settling in. Everything looks good. Pause, set initial state one more time, but now everything's pretty chill. Okay, so now what we can do is grab like something like a person here, just for example. We'll save while we're at this point, and we'll go ahead and right-click this guy, and we'll say simulation, collider body, and I just want to show real quick just kind of how this is going to work. So we'll add a bunch of time in the timeline here just so we can mess around with that, and hit play, let it think, and while it starts to go, there we go, we can come in here and start kicking around our shapes, right? So pretty fun. So, you know, it's working, and like when things aren't reacting, they don't need to. So that's pretty cool. Splish splash. Nice. All right. Cool. So our dynamics are working. And so now we can just build our little thing in the middle. It's just going to swoosh these around, okay? So go ahead and go back. Delete this because that's silly. So what we're going to do is create the thing in the middle that's going to both rake and smooth at the same time. All right, here we go. So cube, big cube, and we're going to go ahead and say about 5 in the X, 10 in the Y, and 200 in the Z is going to be too long, so we definitely want to slide that in. We'll go to our top view, and we'll say somewhere around. This is where, like, if you actually had it the right size rather than scaling it in, it'd be better, but we'll say 167. Looks pretty good. Fill it 0.5. There we go. Okay, so now we've got that set. So we got 510 by 167. And what we're going to do is isolate this with this eyeball button up here, because we're going to go ahead and mess with this. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to build the comb and the smoothing part all in one. So we're going to grab basically we're just going to clone it. Boop. And we're going to take this one and pull it over here and make it a little fatter. And we'll pull it down a bit. And we're going to rotate it like on the Z, like that. Okay. And so that's going to be, we want it to go a little past halfway. So that's going to be one side. And that's going to be our smoothing side. And we'll bring that down. So it's going to be kind of ramped so that it just kind of like catches and smooths, right? It's just going to kind of make sense, I think. And you'll see what I'm talking about because we're going to subtract that shape from this other shape. Now we also want to go ahead and make a copy of the original clone again. And this time we're just going to shrink it in to, say, a size of about 6. Looks pretty good. So this is our new shape here in the middle. And so what we're going to do with that one is put that in a cloner. So hold Alt, put it in a cloner. And we're going to change our cloner type from grid to linear, which is going to allow us to make a row of them. And we're going to go ahead and change it from Y, because right now it's going up. And we just need it to go on the Z axis here. So we're going to go ahead and go minus on the Z, so you can kind of see, and we can space these apart kind of how we want them. Probably 10 and 10. We'll go ahead and scoot it over so that we can, we can hold Shift and scoot it over about 5. And we can just go ahead and increase the count. Boom, boom, boom. And maybe we'll scoot it over, hold Shift a little bit more. Maybe not hold Shift. Maybe we'll just scoot it over. So it's like about in the middle, like that. And we'll pull it down. So it's about, we want it to be about the same height as this. And then for this shape, we definitely need the X on this shape to be more, because we want it to clip all the way through, right? So we're going to cut out this way and cut out that way. So we're going to do that with the volume builder. Now, we can just come in here to all of our cubes and just crank the segments up to 50, 50, 50, and that's going to allow our volume builder to work a lot better. So volume builder, grab the cloner, grab our cube, this is going to be our cutout cube, and then grab our base cube and put that at the very top. And inside of our cloner, we want to change these to subtract and then subtract. And then we need to set the voxel size to 1 and most likely redo our order. So grab our top cube, put it at the bottom, and then when you do that, you want to make sure that this is still set to subtract. And there we go. So cube 1 on top, that's this slanty one. And then the cloner is this one. And so now we're left with that going on here. So we might need to come in here to cube 1, and we can kind of pull it over and pull it down and maybe even rotate it even more. If we go into our volume builder and lower this down to like 0.5, get it really small, there we go. So now we have that nice smooth edge, and we have teeth on that side. Cool. So as long as we're rotating around like this, should be totally fine. I should label things, it'd be easier to follow. Basically, cloner, teeth, there we go, teeth, and other side is the smoother, and then we've got the little spinny thing, spinny ting. Okay, there we go. So now we're good. So what we want to do now is basically make this an object. So with our volume builder selected, we're going to go ahead and hold Alt and choose the volume mesher. And boom, there we go. Now it's a nice mesh. Now inside of this, we could smooth this out a little bit. So what I like to do to smooth things out is I like to add, not the smoother first, it's actually the dilate in a road. So we're going to just back this off to like 0.1 on the offset. And we can do like 2 iterations, maybe like that. And you can just see how it kind of just buffs it up just a little bit. And I think just having a little bit of buffing and just 1 iteration smooths it out a smidge. And then we can add a smoother on there if we want and really dial it down though. But we're not going to need to too much. I actually don't even want the smoother on there because most of the time it causes more issues than it's worth. We can just increase the voxel range if you want. If you're like losing too much, you can increase that a little bit more. But normally at 50%, it's pretty good. Okay, so now we can hit C and make that editable. And then what I like to do is take that. If you look at this geometry, it's kind of crazy. Honestly, not too bad. But we can just put that in the remesher real quick. just to kind of smooth it out and make it a little more even across the whole thing. And that normally fixes all those little rough edges. So that's kind of nice to do that. Okay, now we can go back and we have a little bit smoother here. And again, we can just throw that. What we want to do to fix that, we won't even see that, honestly, because it's going to be below. But let's say this bugs you, right? So come in here and into the modifiers and go down to smoothing and hold shift, and that's going to put that right underneath it. So this is like fake smoothing. It's kind of like a fake, it's kind of weird. And you can adjust the stiffness of it and everything. And you're just going to slide it around until you kind of get it just looking pretty good. And it just kind of helps. It's like a fake Fong tag kind of scenario where it just helps those weird little edges that maybe you're getting polygons from. A lot of times with the volume builder, you'll get just weird little jagged bits that shouldn't be jagged. And this smoothing modifier fixes that quite a lot. Okay, cool. It's not really going to matter because what we're going to do is when you look at this, you're going to be looking at all the little balls floating around anyway. And you're not even going to see that stuff. So we're not going to worry about it too much. Okay, but there we go. So now what I want to do is basically animate the rotation of this. And it's cool because we built everything in the center. What we can do is go to keyframe 0 and say keyframe. And we'll probably we'll go to 240. We'll go to 240. There we go. And we're going to go to the end there. And what I want to do is hit R for rotation. And I'm going to rotate it around twice, actually, rather than just once. And so what that's going to do is allow us to kind of cut in the middle. That way we don't have to wait for that beginning bit. It'll make sense in a minute. So we'll do 360. But then twice would be 720. So hold shift, 720, let go, and keyframe. So there we go. 2 keyframes. And what we want to do now is make sure that's smooth. So we're going to go to the F curve. And inside this, we're going to make sure we have this selected. Hit Control A for all of our thingies. And we're just going to make sure that we hit this linear button here. And now everything's straight. And so what's going to happen is if we hit save now, we need to right click this, our arm, which has been renamed to remesh again after I named it spinny tingy. And we're going to go to rigging tag, simulations, and go down to collider, just like the tray. So what we can do now is just hit play and watch it go and make sure everything's working how we want it. There's one more setting we may need to tweak, which we will in a second, but we're going to go ahead and let this cook for a minute. There it goes. Smash. It's probably too fast, right? It's not bad, but it's not great either. We're really smashing into everything. So what we need to do is go back to frame 0, and we're going to adjust this keyframe. So we're going to go to the last frame here. And I was thinking back from when I did it at 480, and that's why I did 2 rotations, which is what I want to do. So we're going to go to 480 down here instead of 240. Click and drag down here on the time bar, and then just click and drag that up to 480. There we go. So now it should be twice as slow, half as fast. But yeah, there we go. So now we got that going. We've got everything set up how we want. And what we want to do here is we actually want to go into our cloner dynamic tag. Once again, go to the collision, and instead of the stickiness, we're actually going to change that to like 0.2. And that's going to give it that kind of nice, well, sticky sand effect. Kind of like kinetic sand if you've ever played with that as a kid or an adult or whatever. It's good stuff. But we're going to go ahead and play, and we'll look at this. I think honestly our whole thing just needs to be lifted up. So I'm not even going to bother. We'll hit pause. This is the issue with dynamics, is it gets kind of lame in this part. But so what I want to do is I want to lift it up, but I want to lift it up easily without having to keyframe the beginning and then keyframe the end. So I'm going to put it in a null and then just lift that null up so I can adjust it on the fly if I need to. So I'm going to raise it up so it's like kind of like that. Right? That's not too bad. A little more room for our sand and stuff to go through. And I know, yes, we're clipping through it. You could fill up the tray with this first. It's honestly how I would probably go about doing it if I was going to do it for a client or something. But as far as like teaching it goes, it made the most sense to do it this way, I think, because it just kind of grabs your attention. But yeah, it ends up being fine, right? So there we go. Look, it's nice and sticky. smoothing it out a little bit. We may need to lower it down a smidge, but we'll take a look at this. I mean, we can just stretch it out or whatever, but let's go ahead and hit render on this. And there we go. Look. So we've got our lines being drawn here, and obviously that's smooth, but we haven't gone over there yet. So what I want to do is just take this and hit T and just kind of scale it up just a bit, and then grab that and push it back down. So I think for whatever reason, yeah, I want our smoothing thing to be right there. And it just wasn't really like creating enough divot in it for me. We'll pull it up just a smidge more and scale it back down. I think I went too crazy, but I want it to be kind of flat right there, and then have enough to really dig into it with the teeth on that side. Okay, cool. So now let's save, and we'll just do it again. Go back and hit play. So we need to let it play through a little bit here. We want to at least get it to go halfway around so that we can see that we are in fact going to smooth it back out. See, I don't like that I'm digging all the way down to the bottom now though. So I might need to shrink up my things. It'd been smarter if I didn't just hit C and I made a copy of it and didn't delete it. So when you're doing it, if you ever run into that issue, you should right click and say current state to object, like connect objects, instead of connect objects and delete, which is what C does basically. All right, let's see what happens here when this side gets to where this started. That's what I'm curious about. Is it going to smooth it out enough? Let's see. Actually doesn't do a bad job, but because our stuff is a little too sticky, we are clipping through. And I don't like that. So, let's see, let's just render it real quick and we'll fix that. Yeah. It's working a tiny bit, but not enough. I think I just stretched it out too much. Hit T, scale it back down, pull it up. Yeah, like that. And we might honestly go back to the beginning, isolate this again, and I'm going to grab this side of this with the rectangle selection tool to go into the side view. And we'll go ahead and go like this, rectangle selection. And we're going to go right here like that. We'll say UI, smooth it out. Maybe not UI. We'll do UK to go in, UK to go in, UK to go in. And then we'll hold control. And really, we just want that. Okay, cool. There we go. So we've got all that selected. I want to make sure that I'm straight across the top. Shift, click. There we go. That's close enough. Yeah, I don't love that. Visible only off. Now see, why is that? That bit should definitely not be selected, right? Okay. And rotate again. Hold control. And then once again, there. So now we got a nice clean cut. What we can do is hit T and scale it up and then push it down like so. So now it's kind of back down. That might be too much. Scale it back down. E. Just want to lower that bit down, so it's definitely lower than that. I think that's going to look a little better maybe in smoothing it out. I don't know. Could be too much still. Pull it down a bit more. Like that. So we'll try that. It's not an issue. So I think that'll look totally fine. Undo the eyeball here. Hit save. Go back to the beginning. Grab our null. Pull it up a bit. Just like that. Yeah, because I don't want it to cut all the way down into the bottom. I like having that little gap there at the top. It's going to allow it to create those smooth layers. And now, once again, we hit play. Okay, we're getting around to the side. This is where we started. It's looking better. We're not cutting into the floor anymore. And we're going to see if this kind of smooths it out. All right, we're going to let it keep going. And if we pause this here, if this worked correctly, we'll have lines from this point on and not behind this. Fingers crossed. And not bad. Definitely smooth it. I think we just have stickiness up a little too high, but that definitely is giving that, or like if you watched it back in real time, it would give that illusion that it's smoothing it back out. I'm pretty happy with that. I think we can take our stickiness down to 0.1. And honestly, I think we're good to cache it. So what we're going to do is hit save. And we're going to go to our Dynamics tab. And we're going to go to cache and say cache scene. And we're going to let that cook. It's going to bake all of our dynamics and collisions in. That way, when we come back, we don't have to wait for it to get to that point every single time. We can just scrub through the timeline. Everything will work. And then we can come in and adjust our spheres and stuff like that to have the higher geometry. Should all be pretty good. Just going to bake that in. So we'll take a look at that as soon as that finishes. All right, so that finished. So now we go back to the beginning. We hit play. It's just going to play back in real time. So there we go. Everything's settling in pretty good. There's a little jostling more than I would like, but I think that'll be fine. If you want to fix that kind of stuff, all you got to do is run back into the dynamics and adjust some of this threshold stuff and the timer. Maybe up it back up to 10 or something, and then also hit Control D and go into your simulation settings. And inside of here, you can up the collision passes and maybe up the dampening a bit, and that will really fix that for us. Now, changing these things now won't matter because we cached it, but you can always recache it and make those settings. Just for the sake of the tutorial, we're going to stick with this because it's not too bad. So you can see we actually have almost a loop. If you go to the last frame and the first frame, they're obviously different because the last frame, this thing has been going, and we have the brush, right? And in the first frame, it hasn't been going. So how do we make it loop? Well, we actually are just going to cut it out. But we're getting a nice result where it is actually smoothing it out behind. So all we're going to do, we have 480 frames. We're going to cut out in the middle. So we're going to go with, start here at 120 frames and end here at 360. We could probably end at 480. Yeah, but here we go. 120, hit play. And when it gets to the end, it should almost loop. Yeah, there's like a little glitch where things kind of move around, but the animation of the path is it. So, obviously if you get things to actually settle and stuff, this might be, usable for a seamless loop. But what you can do is, because it is kind of hard to notice, right? So what you do is you have one shot and then another shot, and you cut between the two. And people won't really notice that it's not looping. So you just go back and forth between those two. It won't be quite as satisfying, but it still is an option. But that's how you can start at that frame. So you can just start your animation right where you want. And so now what we can do is go into our spheres and just start increase that back up to like 48. So now they're nice and smooth, round little spheres. And if they're clipping into each other, which they really shouldn't be because they were the same size, you can always come in and like dial it back like 0.98. Just really just hone it in just a little bit there if you want. If you want to give a little cushion. But yeah. So now, and then there's a little gap here, and I'm just going to hit T and scale the tray in a smidge like that. There's always those weird little adjustments you have to do with dynamics. But there we go. So now you can throw in some shots. So we'll go ahead and we'll set up a camera for this, Redshift camera. We'll do 150 focal length. This will be kind of our wide shot, right? Like this. And we'll just do some quick textures really quick. Standard white texture on, let's do the dots and the tray the same color. And we can again turn our subsurface back on our tray so it's nice and smooth. And then what we can do is maybe grab another one. We'll double click this and we'll do like a kind of like a purple, maybe a bluish kind of like color like that. We can maybe make a glass that's like sort of the same kind of bluish, but with like maybe a lighter pink kind of inside. So we'll make that depth like that and lower this down, raise that, then lower that down too. It's kind of plasticky. And we'll throw that on our tray, which is, or on our mixer thing, which is this. And we should probably put it on our tray too, honestly. And we'll do our standard material we created on our ball. So now we can hit play on that, or render on that, I mean. And there we go. There we go, that looks pretty good. Not too bad. I think we could probably finesse this a bit more with some more time. Lower the depth a bit. Maybe make this a little more pink. Give it more of a purpley vibe like that. Yeah. And that's it. That's pretty good. Little fun glass. You could probably go with something like, let's go with like a light blue, but more of a blue, but like that. So you have it all kind of the same colored palette, like that. That looks pretty good. And then what you can do is come to our dome lights, or we could adjust that, pick a different one, or we'll just go ahead and grab an area light. With this area light selected, we'll go ahead and do add target tag and null by clicking this little arrow, pull it down, and we're just going to grab it and zoom out here in our top view and pull it back behind our shot, like so. And our null is actually not the middle, it's over here, so we're going to go ahead and pull this to here so it's looking in the middle. Grab our area lights, and we're just going to go into our side view now. Pull it up a bit, up and back, like that, and maybe stretch it out. Okay. There we go. Is that the wrong way? Where's our camera at? I want to be behind. Oh, I put it towards the camera. I want to be behind the camera. So pull it back this way. So it's like a rim light. There we go. And then we'll make it tighter. So we're going to pull down the spread. Okay. And then we're going to definitely make it less bright. So like a 10. And what we're going to do is we're going to scale it up to probably 400 by 400. So it'll be sort of big. And what we're going to do is go here to our asset browser and type in Gobo. And we're going to find one of these tree gobos that Maxon has provided for us, like this one. This is number 9, and grab and drop that into the textures here. And we'll take a look at that, and then I'll show you kind of what we can do with this. Play and open. There we go. Actually, that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. I think our material could be a little less pink and a little more purple. Would be all I would do. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Nice. But yeah, just like that. We could probably add in a fill light, so we'll do one more area lights. Then once again, target tag and null. And we'll grab that one. And we'll pull this one back towards the camera, like off to the side of the camera, like this. And we want it to look at it from the side. And we're going to have this one be a nice soft light. So we're going to pull it up. Oops, that's not up. That's sideways. Pull it up this way. Like that. Maybe up a little more. And that should probably be too bright, but we'll take a look. Because I definitely like the backlight. Yeah. So we'll grab that and take that one down to like 6. There we go. So it just kind of fills in that a little bit and brings a little more life to it. And it feels a little less static. But yeah, there we go. You've got a nice, cool shot there. So that would be like your wide shot that you would do. Maybe slide over a smidge so it's actually in frame. And then what we do is we grab a camera, copy, paste, grab another camera. And so you'd render that out, that animation out. Boom. And then you take another camera and you come in here with like a 50 mil lens. You get in there real tight. And you come back here. Maybe look at it from like the angle of it brushing. Right? Let's go back to frame 0 actually to set this up. So yeah, we want to come over here. It's like little caviar eggs. And let's watch it draw the lines. So we're going to line it up so it's like kind of where this display, you see this like cross displays on my camera. You go into your camera and you go down to display and you enable the grid and you can have these little lines here. So you have the rule of thirds. So what I want to do now is inside of this camera, let's go ahead and open that up in Redshift. I want to add some depth of field, and then we should have a nice cool tight shot that we can cut to And what I want to do is add some depth of field on this. So we're going to go to optical, bokeh, and then we'll choose the focus distance button here instead of the IPR. Click like right here on that spot that you want. And so now we can maybe raise that up to 12. And we can maybe lift it up a bit so it's kind of more top down. And then maybe back it up a smidge more, like that. Like that, okay. And once again, click the focus right here. And maybe bring this back down to 10. So I want it to have this nice shallow depth of field look to it. And we could always increase the lens length and stuff if you wanted. But I think that's going to look pretty good. So now what I can do, because I'm doing this on frame 1, go ahead and save, is I can grab that and then shove that just underneath this remesh, or really underneath the smoothing. And what should happen here is inside this camera, we should have this nice follow camera. So you would just cut from one to the other, and that would create this nice seamless loop where you really can't tell that it's changing, because right at that point where it's weird, that's where you would cut, and you'd have the wide shot, cut back to the tight shot, and it just looks like you have this continuous motion. So how to make this look extra good? We'll go into our render settings here, Redshift, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that we've got denoising on and stuff like that, sure, but if you're going to use denoising, which I recommend you do, you want to make sure random noise pattern is off, okay? Because that's going to cause some issues. And then we want motion blur on. And for the time, I like to do 180. It's kind of like the default filmic look. And then for the efficiency, we say 50%. And you may notice nothing's going to change here. But if we actually do a actual bucket render here, that's where we're going to actually see the motion blur. So with our camera moving and stuff, we're on frame like 130. We should have some motion blur already. So we'll take a look at that. Let that render. But there you go. You should have a pretty cool looking, satisfying scene where you cut those two together. If you want to download this scene, it's available on Gumroad below, as well as all of my courses and things in Redshift and C4D. If you like this kind of full-length tutorial, like all the way through from start to finish, I go even more depth into all my stuff inside of each chapter of the Mind in Motion Workshop, which you can buy as a bundle and save, or individually, which with 9 different courses. So now you may wonder, okay, how come I'm looking at it here, I see this, and here I see this? Well, it's just a weird bug with caching and the bucket render here. So let's go ahead and just take a look at what happens, because we do the IPR here and then do the bucket render here rather than there, it'll probably work correctly, which is just annoying, right? So we want to make sure that we actually have it so that when you go to hit render, it actually works. And we're going to make sure that that happens, because I know a lot of people get to this point and then they're like, what is going on? And that's like really disheartening when you go through all this time to set it up and it's working. And then you look at it later and you go to render it and it's not. Okay, so I know exactly what the issue is. The issue is a weird bug. And so what you have to do, sadly, is just go all the way back to frame 0 and render it out from there and then cut it down afterwards. It's really annoying, but that's really the only way around it, because now, you know, yes, we're still baked all the way around. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to like here, and we're going to go ahead and do a render to picture view from right there. And that should give us that frame we want. We want to do 30 here. We want to match the frame rate here. Frame rate is 30, and frame rate in our scene, which is Control D, is 30 as well. So now it's not going to matter. We did our scene. That's what it's cached. Could have been the issue, honestly, but we're going to go ahead and render the picture viewer here. And you may notice, obviously, it comes in really disgusting looking. It does fix itself, so don't like stop your render when that first frame looks blown out and weird, because that's just how it is. I wish this would just go away and Redshift would make their own version of the picture viewer where you could do animations and stuff. All right, there we go. So now we actually have it match. It does match. It is working right. It's just a weird bug where if you don't have it back at frame 0, it doesn't work. I don't know why. Also, the frame rate was off, but that really wasn't the issue. It was the frame 0 thing. So rendered out. but maybe they fix it by the time you do it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just wrong, but if you figured out, let me know in the comments below. But hopefully you should have a nice, successful, cool thing. So you render out this animation and then do the other one. And so you can just go from this and then just go boop, cut to that, you know. Thank you for watching. If you like all this content and stuff, check out all my links below, DerekKirk.net, for all of the courses and Skillshare work and all my Gumroad content. All the free content I have, as well as all the paid content I have, is all available there. And a little bit about me as well. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate your time, and thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Hope you enjoyed, and maybe this hopefully brought you more zen than frustration. So we'll see. Let me know in the comments below. See ya.